And
Okay. So tell me about that, because how does one go about creating a custom GPT? So give us step by step,
sure.
knowing that people are gonna listen to this and then gonna go follow those steps. So give us precise steps in the layman's language.
Okay, so full caveat, like to build a really good custom GPT, you have to know how to prompt really well, because obviously building a custom GPT is just like creating a good prompt that would run automatically every time, and you have to give it conditions. So I can't do that in the small time that we have, but I can tell you what you should generally consider. So like a little bit of summary for people who don't know what custom GPTs are. Custom GPTs are sort of like, I would say, small chatbots that you create within the ChatGPT interface, where you can train them on specific knowledge bases. So like you can upload your PDFs, your Word documents, Excel files, whatever it is that you want to train them on in terms of knowledge. And then you can also set custom instructions. So you can say, all right, so every time somebody starts a conversation with this chatbot, I want you to respond in this form, in this format, like with this, for example, tone of voice. Every time you have to output this and this type of information. And if this person asks you X, you have to look into Y, Z, and so forth. So it's basically a really neat way to automate like a smaller process. I mean, you can automate a bigger process as well, but a smaller process is generally what I recommend. And to have that running every time the same way whenever you start this chatbot. So this is kind of like custom GPTs in a nutshell. To access custom GPTs, I think you have to have a Plus account, so you have to pay the $20 per month for ChatGPT. But honestly, best investment for the month. If you haven't paid that, pay it. To create it, you would go to your ChatGPT interface. On the left-hand side, you can go to Explore GPTs, which is basically where the custom GPTs app library is. I call it an app library because that's the easiest way to understand what it is. So custom GPTs can be built by anyone and can be shared with the community. So this is also a great resource for Amazon sellers, because there is custom GPTs that do a lot of different things, specifically also for Amazon sellers. So do have a browse there. There's a lot of very useful ones. But if you want to create one yourself, you basically then go from the custom GPT library to the right upper corner of your screen, where there is a big green button called Create. You press that, and then you basically end up in a new screen where you can configure your custom GPT. Now, it really is important to understand what you really want to do with what is the output that you want and what is it that you want from this custom GPT, and then to build a very, very robust prompt based off that. You can upload documents in the knowledge section. You can also integrate this with external apps or other like tools. Like, for example, one thing that I recommend is to check a tool called Web Pilot. There is a custom GPT by Web Pilot, but also you can integrate that within your custom GPT. And what it does is it is able to then have direct access to the internet. So if like any of your work is connected with live data, you can integrate that within your custom GPT. And then obviously, like, you need to build a prompt. And like a lot of the times I suggest that people sort of create the prompt, but then also create a decision-making tree based off, like, give the custom GPT sort of a logic by which it would answer based on different situations. And then, of course, if you have like any specific data analysis need, you have to tick the little box underneath, which is currently unticked, which is saying enable code interpreter, which is basically what switches on that Python function in custom GPT. that's the super crash course. I basically announced myself a massive geek because I just did that off top of my head, visualizing it. And I maybe should spend far less time in ChatGPT.
No, you did very well because as you were talking, I pulled up ChatGPT and you were right. There is a create. So when you go to ChatGPT and just log in right there on the home page, on the left-hand side, you have Explore GPTs. Those are all the GPTs that other people created, right?
Yeah.
And but in the top right corner, there is a button that says plus create. So when you click that, it brings up, it says, I'll help you build a new GPT. You can say something like, make a creative who helps generate visuals for new products, or make a software engineer who helps format my code. So what would you like to make? So that's where it starts. So I guess that's where you start to give your prompts to say, this is what I want to do, blah, blah. But I heard you mention something extremely valuable. That's the biggest tip. And it has nothing to do with ChatGPT. And it's the flowchart. You have to have a flowchart of what you want to create. Because I can see this exactly, in action. You're going to say, do this, do that, do the other, but it's going to follow a logic, right? And if you create a loophole, it's going to get stuck in that loophole. And so therefore, you want to create a flow chart of what you want your custom GPT to do.
Yeah.
And then simply following that flow chart, you talk to GPT, upload the files, and then you're gonna have your little application, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know what I always teach teams is before they sit down and even open custom GPTs, sometimes even before they switch on their computer, is take pen and paper, go really old school and draw like almost like a little map of what is it that you are trying to do and break it down into like little bite-sized pieces of a process. Like in the end, using AI and using AI successfully is all about understanding your process and breaking it down. Because getting something from AI is no different than getting something from an intern that just started at your company. Like they both don't really know very much until you actually explain it to them, teach them, give them context. And then once you have done that and you ask them for a specific enough thing, they're able to perform. So it's just about like, don't, I get I get a really kind of irritated when I see these very broad prompts in 2 sentences and people are like, look, see, it did it. But when you actually read the result is garbage. So, don't do that. Like sit down, like write down like one simple process, break it down, and then start building your prompt and then feed it into the chat GPT or whatever platform you want, because then is when you really see really good output.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna tell you this. Don't use pen and paper. Okay.
Okay.
So if I said that, then it would be justified because I'm much older, but you can't say that. I tell you what I use.
Hmm.
I use flowchart
Mm-hmm.
and I use this tool I discovered many years ago. It's an Excel add-on. And by the
Mm-hmm.
way, for the record, I'm an anti-Google person. I don't touch Google tools, Google Docs, Google Sheets, none of those
Mm-hmm.
things. And so I stick to products that are created by people who, companies that make a living out of the success of the product they create, not
Mm-hmm.
by indexing the content I provide by using that content. So that's why I'm actually very happy with the lawsuit that U.S. government filed against Google. So I think it's
We have
getting
a
a little
Google
bit,
hater.
on the edge here. But this is exactly how I feel. So I use Excel. So it won't work on Mac, it won't work on Google Sheets, but it will work beautifully on Excel. It's called Flow Breeze.
Okay.
It's a
I'm gonna
desktop
write it down.
application.